Welcome back to the HPP podcast. I'm Rich Harris, and thank you for joining us again. Our last episode featured previews of the NBA's Atlantic and Southeast divisions with special guest Chase Hughes, who covers the Washington Wizards for NBC Sports. You can listen to that episode or any other HPP episode at hoopsprospects.com. Please check it out. Today, I'm joined by Drew Barton and Maverick Swenson, and we will be previewing the Central and Pacific divisions in the NBA. And we haven't forgotten about college hoops. We will also be talking to Kentucky sophomore forward Daimion Collins, a former five-star recruit. Gentlemen, how was your weekend? How are you guys doing?
Good weekend here, Rich. Can't complain. Yesterday was kind of my first real class in the scouting class that I'm taking. Got to sit down with Rick's son, or via Zoom, so I guess virtually sit down with him. And he's a cool guy, man. He's been an exec or in the NBA for 40 years, and I mean, he's talking about how his contact book in his phone is like Pat Riley, R.C. Buford, Coach Popovich. So now that was really cool to kind of sit down and kind of pick his brain about, NBA, the scouting world, what's it like to, evaluate talent. And as always, 5-0 in all my fantasy leagues this year for fantasy football, or 5-0 this week. I'm not undefeated in all of them, but I'm 5-0 in all my fantasy leagues on the week. So good day to be Drew Barton. Good weekend to be Drew Barton.
Nicely done. How about you, Maverick?
Oh, whenever NBA basketball is on and during the weekend, it's a great weekend. Even though it's preseason, it's good to be back. Got to tune into a lot of games. Very happy about that and very excited for the upcoming season.
I'm very disappointed in both of you. Neither of you mentioned the great F1 race in Singapore. It was kind of funny because on cue, I won't dwell on F1 too much, but on cue, qualifying in any kind of auto racing is kind of critical. And so the better you do, the better your starting position is. And Max Verstappen was having a lap that was going to put him on pole, on first spot for finishing. And his team told him at the last second to abort and come into the pit, and he had no idea why. So it was another tirade, and I don't want to quote Max again because we know what happened last week, and that was just unbelievable. So it was just funny. It was just one F-bomb after the other. So anyway, so that's our Max Verstappen F-bomb update for the week. So as Maverick pointed out, the NBA preseason tipped off a few days ago, and we'll start by talking about some news around the association. A lot of it, well, actually not a lot, but some of it deals with some of the teams we've already covered last week. One of the things is TJ Warren, as we talked about last week, was a possible six-man of the year candidate, and really bolstered the Nets bench, gave them a nice scoring option off the bench. And now we find out that the foot injury that's sidelined him for almost 2 seasons, he's still not going to be ready to play. Now they're looking at, they don't expect him till sometime in November now, they're saying. Any thoughts on this other than just bad news for the Nets?
Yeah, this is really concerning. Predominantly for TJ Warren's career. I mean, at this point, we always know that in the NBA, everyone talks about, the Achilles, the ACL, but what people don't realize for these big guys that are, 6'8", 6'9", 7 feet tall, foot injuries are kind of the kiss of death. And it's a slow one because you keep trying to come back. But I'm very worried now that if he's going to miss 2.5 seasons of basketball, that even if he does come back, there's a good chance he's not the TJ Warren we saw in the bubble or back in 2019, 2020. These are the type of injuries that end careers, because they reoccur, they, limit bursts, they limit jumping ability. And not that TJ Warren was a freak athlete, to the point where his entire game was above the rim, but this is just concerning. And then from a basketball standpoint, the whole point of TJ Warren being on this team was to another scorer. It bolsters the depth. When you have a team with Kevin Durant, Kyrie, and Ben Simmons, you need that one or two guys who can come in and fill some sort of gap. And now he's not going to be there. So it really worries me. I hope he comes back. I'm glad at least they're giving him a timetable, because for the last 2 years we haven't heard anything. It's just been he's out. But this worries me. If there's any setback to this, TJ Warren might be done.
Yeah. Matt, any thoughts?
I'm not too concerned. And the reason for that is because the reason why he went to the Nets was to take time, have a talented team around him to come back to where he gets back to that scoring efficiency that he showed in the bubble. But really, in reality, TJ Warren doesn't need to go back to that scoring output in the bubble. He just needs to be consistent and maybe just plays 20 minutes a night for the Nets this season. And I think that's why he's taking his time to make sure that he's fully back. So whenever he is on the court, he can fully participate and contribute as much as possible this season.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, right now the big three on that team is healthy, apparently. So at least they're starting the year that way. So Warren, where we thought Warren would be, I mean, they already have Joe Harris or Seth Curry. One of those two is going to be coming off the bench and giving him, a scoring punch. And Warren was supposed to be the other guy. But right now with the big three being healthy, with Durant and Irving, they probably have plenty of scoring. But where we thought, Warren might be really helpful is, those times where, Kyrie misses, a couple of weeks for whatever reason, or Durant, he's getting up there and, he misses a couple of weeks. It'd be nice that, Warren could throw in like 5 or 6 starts, So, yeah, hopefully that's the case. He's just taking his time. So then we had a somewhat nondescript 3-team trade. It turned out to be, we didn't know it because the trade was announced 2 different days, but the first piece of it was Vit Krejcik went to the Thunder, to the Hawks for Mo Harkless. And then the Thunder in turn sent Harkless, and bear with me as I bring up all the players that were in this trade. It turned out to be 8 players. 2 have been cut, 1 from each team so far. But Derek Favors, Harkless, Ty Jerome, and Theo Maledon went to the Rockets, and David Waba, Sterling Brown, Trey Burke, Marquise Chris, went to Oklahoma City from Houston. So I hope I said that right. So the first guys went to Houston, and then the second group went to Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City also saved some money here to make sure they didn't fall into the luxury cap, and they also got a couple trade exceptions. So I think from Oklahoma City's point of view, it was more a financial move than anything else. So especially without Chet Holmgren, Oklahoma City, I mean, that was their biggest weakness, having a true big in the middle who could actually, score some points and block some shots. And now they're back to the same old ugly set of options that they had last year. I mean, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, he's a nice player, but he's not, at 6'7" or 6'8". You don't want him playing center in the NBA. At least you don't want him playing center in the NBA as your best option, So, yeah. So any comments about, this 3-team trade? Drew is shaking his head. No, he has no comment.
There's nothing of note here. I mean, Rich, you said it. It's probably a financial move for the Thunder. If you really look at it, the Hawks get Mo Harkless, fine, that's fine. But if you look at the Thunder and the Rockets, these are probably 2 of the 5 worst teams in the league, swapping nondescript players that, like you said, have already been cut in some cases. Nothing of note here. NBA fans, I was at work on like a Thursday afternoon, and I got the notification, and I sent a picture to the group chat saying, I don't think I've ever cared less about a trade. Rich is right. There's some behind-the-scenes stuff that matters. These are teams that are going to be looking to add a lot of young talent over the next couple of years through high draft picks, so they want to have the money in order. They want to probably keep the cap in check as long as possible. But, yeah, you could have slept through this one. You didn't miss much.
Wow. Wow. What a cynic. What a cynic this San Francisco guy is. What do you have to say, Mav? Anything?
Not really. I mean, the only thing to really add is Houston also got a top 40 protected second round pick.
I forgot that.
Oh, that'll be useful for our conversations when we do our mock draft this year. But other than that,
all right.
6 months down the line, we'll revisit.
I'm going to take the optimistic point of view. First of all, I like Atlanta getting, and I don't know if I'm ever saying this guy's name right. We'll just say Vet. He is a point forward. Okay, so the guy can play anywhere from 1 through maybe 4. And he was a high second round pick, and he's still young. And I think it was a nice move, by the Hawks, because basically they're getting a guy that maybe has some upside. I saw him play some in the summer league, and I like how he looked. And Mo Harkless, as we know, is, he's an all right guy, to have, give you some defense and rebounds. But, so I like that for Atlanta. As far as the trade goes, I was actually surprised. First of all, Sterling Brown was cut by Oklahoma City already, and Ty Jerome was cut by Houston, and that's kind of surprised me.
That one surprised me.
And Jerome, by the way, there are a lot of people thought, I didn't personally. I had Jerome ranked a lot lower than most draft experts the year he came out, because I just didn't see him have the athleticism. And I thought ultimately he was going to be a 2 guard. And I guess right now you'd call him a combo guard. But apparently the Warriors want to sign him. He's working with the
Warriors. Yeah. He's with the Warriors, which I think would be a great signing. I was surprised he was cut. Because I think there's some usable aspects to his game. Yeah. But when you look at the teams involved, though, I do also kind of get like, he's not really a needle mover either way. And if you're not really looking to compete, you might just be like, yeah, he's young-ish, but why take the spot? Why pay him?
Yeah.
He's not a big enough.
He's a nice shooter, though, I mean,
which is why I think the Warriors
and Golden State's probably looking at him because they're kind of hurting it at point guard, Yeah. I mean, but the other piece to this is, I liked Theo Maledon. I still haven't given up on him, and Houston really needs a backup point guard. So now it's going to come down to him. What's his first name? Deshaun Nix. Maledon and Deshaun Nix now are going to probably be competing to be the backup point guard. And we know Kevin Porter really isn't really a pure point guard by any stretch. Though he did a pretty good job last year. I'll give it to Kevin Porter for that. But I think they were, both Nix and Maledon are pass first guys, and I think that's somebody that Houston could use, and probably should keep both, and see which one shakes out. The other thing is, I will say, is maybe Marquise Chris sticks with the Thunder, former lottery pick. And God knows they need big bodies on that team. So maybe this is probably his last shot, to actually make an impact. But if there was a team to make it on, this is it. So, they really need somebody who can block shots and rebound. So, yeah. So those are my thoughts on the trade. Leave it to me to take the most nondescript trade in the history of the NBA and turn it into a 5-minute discussion. So, moving on, the last piece of news that we have is the Celtics, and it's probably the most interesting piece of news. Celtics signed Blake Griffin. Of course, this is in reaction to Danilo Gallinari being lost for the season, or most likely lost for the season. I don't know why they keep on saying that. There's no way he's going to play this year.
No way.
I mean, give you an example. Ricky Rubio tore his ACL last December.
He's not supposed to be back until December.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and so Gallinari did his in July or August. And so So what do we think about Blake Griffin joining the Celtics?
Man, if it was like 2018, I'd be like, the Celtics are loaded. They're going to the finals guaranteed. I mean, this is 5 years, 4 or 5 seasons too late. Blake is very clearly on the downturn in pretty much all aspects of his game. I mean, you pull up his stats, we're talking career low in points, career low in rebounds, career low in assists, basically almost tied his career low in field goal percentage, almost tied his career low in three-point shooting. There's not a lot here. I mean, you add him because he's kind of a veteran. He's got some passing chops. I mean, back in his prime, he was averaging upwards of 5-6 assists a game. He averaged 2 a game last year. So he can give you a little bit of spark, maybe he can give you a little bit of playmaking from the 4, give you 4 or 5 rebounds. You're not asking him to score, which is nice, but this isn't much of a needle mover. I think you're hoping that Blake gives you 1 out of every 10 games. You get like a kind of a throwback, 10-7 game from him and you're happy. But, it's no knock on Blake Griffin. I also think he's 32. He's had injuries in his past. It's just what it is. He's on the tail end of his career and he's probably just trying to latch onto a championship contending team.
Yeah, I mean, as we talked about last week, the Celtics definitely need at least, a piece or two to add to their bench, and they've definitely been. Listen to this list of players they have collected since Gallinari was injured. Now, most of these guys are on an Exhibit 10s or one's on a two-way or non-guaranteed contract. But listen to them. They have Cavaliers on a two-way contract. They Justin Jackson, Jake Layman, Luka Samanic, who was a former lottery pick. No, I think he was picked 19 for the Spurs a few years back. Noah Vonleh, who I think was a lottery pick.
He was a lottery. I think he was like 11, 12, something like that.
Right. And then they have on partially guaranteed contracts Luke Cornett and Sam Hauser. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and Griffin, 8 guys that they've added to the team, or most of those guys they've added since Gallinari got hurt, hoping that somebody can step up and be another option in the front court to fill in the minutes that Gallinari was going to play. So, yeah, interesting. So let's move on to our Central and Pacific Division previews. We're going to start with the Central, but before we do it, it's going to run through what we're going to be talking about here. We want to talk about, is the team better or worse than last year? Where will they finish in the division, and will they make the playoffs? And does the club have any interesting fantasy notes that we can throw in about, players that might emerge this year, we expect to emerge, or maybe players we expect to take a step back, all from a fantasy perspective. So we'll start with the Bulls in the Central, and they pretty much have the same team as last year, pretty much. Yeah. They lost Tristan Thompson. They gained Andre Drummond and Goran Dragic. And they also added through the draft Dalen Terry. The one thing to be of note is Lonzo Ball, the knee injury that sidelined him last year. He tried to, he was hoping that it would heal on its own without surgery. And now he finally decided. I mean, apparently he was having trouble doing things like getting in and out of bed and walking upstairs. And now he decides to have knee surgery, and it looks like he's going to miss a significant portion of the season, not due back anytime soon. So, I'm going to start with you, Drew. What do you make of the Bulls? Where do you figure they're going to end up in this?
I think the Bulls' ceiling is what it was last year. I think they're going to be a playoff team because they just have enough high-level talent between Vucevic, DeRozan, Levine, Caruso. I always pronounce his name wrong.
Dosunmu. Yeah.
Actually really impressed me last year. I think Patrick Williams could take the step that we've all been kind of projecting for him now the last couple of seasons. I think Drummond's a fine backup center, but I mean, when you look at it, the Lonzo Ball thing really hurts because he gives you a pass-first, defensive-minded point guard who can shoot. I mean, his rookie year notwithstanding, he's turned himself into a very capable shooter, and now you're losing him. I'm going to call it for the year. There's just, even if he comes back, he's not going to play competitive NBA basketball for a year and a half at this point. He's not going to be effective. This is a team that will make the playoffs most likely. and I see a first round exit. I think that 8, 7, 6 spot is probably where they're going to cap out at. And I mean, that's if DeMar DeRozan, has another kind of semi MVP tear that he went on. That's if Vucevic can kind of stay stable at the center position. There's just a lot of like ifs and questions about this team. And I think a lot of the top teams of the East have gotten better, or at a minimum are getting healthier. And so the Bulls are trending in the wrong direction with Lonzo. I like a lot of the individual pieces. If you're playing fantasy basketball, you're probably drafting Zach LaVine, you're drafting DeMar, you're drafting Vucevic. You're probably going to look at Patrick Williams if he takes a leap late in your draft. Andre Drummond, if you're playing in category-specific fantasy leagues, is a rebounding machine. And, whenever he's on the court, he's a threat to pull down 10-plus rebounds. But this is a team that's more of a fantasy basketball team than they are like a really big threat, at the NBA level. If DeMar DeRozan can keep turning back the clock and dominate the mid-range and at, 32 now, 32, 33, and score 28, 29, then maybe they can make a bit of a run. But we saw in the playoffs, this team is not on the level of the Bucks. They are not on the level of the Celtics. Good team, probably going to flame out in the first round.
Mav?
Yeah, I think that Drew really hit it, just hit the nail on the head. I can't see Lonzo coming back this year. I don't think it would be smart for the franchise to bring him back at all this year. But the Bulls do have some talent. They have a lot of individual talent. But I think that last year was really just the what they could really achieve with that team, with this team, was a 6 seed. I can't see it going any higher, especially with the Cavs improvement, Atlanta's improvement. I mean, Boston's still ultra talented, even with the coach dilemma. Milwaukee, even Miami. I can't see the Bulls competing with those teams. Their front court depth is also pretty poor, and their size is almost non-existent. Drummond helps with that, but he does not come close to solving the issue. The Bucks exposed their size in the first round. I can't see this team going anywhere past the first round. I would even say that they might be eliminated in the play-in, depending on who they get matched up with.
Yeah, I that's what I see happening. I think they're fighting for it to be the 9th best team in East with the Knicks and Washington. And yeah, and for all the reasons you guys pointed out. I think the problem you have with Ball is, the guys that, Caruso, okay, he's all right, but, you don't really want him starting. And, the guys who maybe have starter potential in Dosunmu and Kobe White, they're really scoring guards as opposed to point guards. Yeah, they can play the point, but they're really score first guys. So, and Dalen Terry is probably, not ready to make an impact on this team. And even so, as you guys pointed out, what they're really hurting is they really only have one power forward on this team. That's Patrick Williams, who's unproven. So, yeah, I mean, right now they're probably going to start 4 guards and either Drummond or Vucevic, so, from fantasy perspective, who's going to pick up Ball's production? Well, last year it was Dosunmu. White did some, but he missed the early part of the season, and Caruso did. The guy I think I like the most there is Kobe White, because, he's trending up, and he's definitely the most efficient scorer there. He's not going to give you a lot in anything else, but scoring, he's going to help you. Obviously, Patrick Williams has an opportunity, to put up nice numbers for this team because they don't have a lot of height. So he can, grab boards, get some steals, blocks. So we shall see. He's definitely a fantasy sleeper. The one guy I would, be concerned about is Vucevic because, Drummond, I mean, it's kind of like one guy's the offensive guy, one guy's kind of the defensive guy. And I'm not so sure. I don't know. I mean, to me, what this team needs is defense. and so maybe Drummond cuts in his production, not to mention, Vucevic is, I think he's 31, 32, somewhere in there. So, he's on the downside. So, and his numbers are starting to show it. So I would be a little concerned about him fantasy-wise. So the next team we'll talk about in the Central is the Milwaukee Bucks. Finished third in the East last year with a 51-31 record. Of course, we know the Bucks with Giannis are always a threat to win it all. They do have some injury concerns coming into the season. Chris Middleton is not going to be ready for the start of the season with that wrist injury that sidelined him last playoffs, right? That's when the injury occurred in the playoffs?
Yeah, first round. It was I think it was their last win against the Bulls, or second to last one against the Bulls.
Right. And then they signed Joe Ingles, but he's still rehabbing the ACL injury that sidelined him last year, and he's out to at least December. Ingles and rookie Marjan Beauchamp were the two significant additions to the team, and they really didn't lose anybody of note. So basically, we're looking at basically the same team as last year. So Maverick, I'm going to start with you. What do you think about the Bucks?
I think the Bucks are going to be in a similar position at the end of this year. I think they're probably going to be a top 4 seed. They have their championship core still intact, but my concerns is with the age of the core now and how that correlates with Giannis. Chris Middleton is 31. He's starting to show some of his age with some of his injuries. We know that he's not going to be playing with his wrist. Drew Holiday is 32. Brook Lopez is 34. The team also really has no young assets that are really up and coming that will kind of grow with Giannis as he goes more into his prime, while the other core players are going to be completely out of their prime and looking more towards retirement age. Eventually, I don't know if it's going to be this offseason, but I mean, we're looking at, 2 off seasons, maybe mid-year next season. I know that's a pretty far away. You're going to have to look at this team and say, do we want to go younger or keep around the championship core that we won the championship in 2021 with? Because right now, the core is not correlating with Giannis. And the Milwaukee front office has to know this, because with all the chatter 2 seasons ago with Giannis leaving in free agency before he signed that contract extension, that has to scare them at some point. So for this season, it's not an issue. Past this, you're going to have to take a really hard look at where you end up in the playoffs and see where everyone individually is at with their health and how their age is going with their play.
Do you like them to win the division?
Yeah, I would have them right now winning the division, bearing any other injuries. I know we had the Chris Middleton and Joe Ingles. I do like Joe Ingles. I think he's going to be a solid vet whenever he comes back. He's not going to be forced to do too much from his ACL. But after this, it's a big question mark for me.
Yeah. And, some that you didn't even mention, I mean, when you look at their second string, I mean, we're talking guys that are gray beards too. George Hill, Wesley Matthews, Pat Connaughton's, spring chicken, of course, Ingles, and Serge Ibaka, who might need to play some minutes, until Ingles is ready. So, yeah, there's not a lot of young talent on this roster. And, of course, that's it's definitely going to catch up with them sooner or later. Drew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to go the other side here. I guess I'll play devil's advocate. Matt makes good points about they are definitely aging. I mean, their bigs alone. I mean, Serge isn't young. Brook isn't young. Obviously, Middleton's coming off an injury. Joe Ingles is on the older side, already relatively unathletic, coming off one of the bigger injuries a basketball player can have. But I think it goes back to one key point, and it's that, in my mind, Giannis is trending towards an all-time player. I mean, he's looking like he's going to be a top 15 guy, and who knows from there. I mean, you don't need to go through the accolades. You got 2 MVPs, a ring, a Finals MVP, Defensive Player of the Year. The dude is an unstoppable force. I don't want to hear about how he doesn't shoot a lot. It doesn't matter. If he's giving you 30, 14, and 7 and averaging over a block and a half a game, I don't care if he shoots threes or not. And the flip side, that you can make an argument that like players, Drew Holiday might have had his best year ever last year. There's an argument to be made. He was an all-star. The field goal percentage was 44, so a little bit down from his past couple of years, but his three-point percentage was up at 37. So, he's still hitting shots. He defends. He gave you 25 and 5, more or less. It's kind of what you expect from him. Chris Middleton, again, the efficiency creeped down a little bit, but he was still giving you that 26 and 5 that he gives you. And, I mean, at the end of the day, in the game of basketball, it is a star-driven league, and if you have the star of stars, you're going to be competitive. I'm not, completely sold on the rest of the roster, but I think there's enough pieces around that as long as Giannis is doing what he does. I really like Bobby Portis as a reserve. I think he brings great energy. He's a rebounder. He's got a solid nose for scoring the ball in that, 15 to 16 range. This team's going to be competitive. I mean, even Beauchamp, what they need from him, which is going to be, perimeter defense, some youthful energy. He can do that. That's kind of what he does at this point in his career. I'm not sold on some of the older vets for sure, but when you're being carried by a generational player, you have 2 other proven stars coming along for the ride. I think it lightens the load on those guys going, Brooke, Serge, Wesley Matthews, I just need you not to suck. Like, I just need you to not be such a detriment that I can't play you. So I just need you to be able to rotate on defense, hit an open 3, play hard for your 15 minutes a game, whatever you get, and Giannis and the crew will take care of the rest. Will they have questions in a few years about what they want to do because, Giannis is continuing to ascend and the guys around him might be on the descent? Sure. But we're talking right now, this is the team that I've got winning the division, and I think this is pretty much a lock for a top 3 seed. If they stay as is right now and only get healthier, this is a top 3 lock and probably the favorite to come out of the East, in my opinion.
Yeah. I like them to win the division as well. And I think you guys pretty much covered it. I don't think there's a team out there, though, that relies more on one player. I think there's not a team out there where you can say, okay, I'm going to take away player X, and where's this team going to be? And I think if you take Giannis away, if anything ever happens to him, this team's dead. As far as and I really think they need Middleton, to come on. I mean, they need him to return to form. Say by the, for sure, by January. I would think you would hope that he's rounding in the form by then. But I think they're looking at him coming back before Christmas, so I think they should be okay there. Fantasy wise, this team's kind of tough. I don't. There's nobody that that really jumps out to me that's going to be, that's going to make a move, and that's based on basically because this team is pretty much stands pat. I do know a Milwaukee Bucks insider, by the way, Drew, and that person told me the 2 players that he would look at from a fantasy perspective to possibly emerge would be Grayson Allen and Joe Ingles. I don't know if he's totally unbiased about Joe Ingles, but I thought about Grayson Allen. He's certainly, he's close to a 40% 3-point shooter. I don't know if he brings enough on defense and I don't think he's ever averaged better than 12 points a game, so I'm a little worried about that, and I'm, of course, Middleton too, being 31 and coming off the injury. The one guy I think I would keep an eye on, and he's on a 2-way contract. So he's not draftable right now, but I would keep an eye on this guy, especially early in the season, because while Ingles and Middleton are out, one guy who might emerge is Sandro Mamukalishvili from Seton Hall. He had a nice summer in Eurobasket. I mean, the guy can play center. He can play power forward. He can even play small forward, you know. And he can shoot. He can pass. And I think I'm surprised he's still on a two-way with them. I think ultimately maybe they sign him to a regular deal. I would hope so. I think part of the reason why maybe they didn't convert it is because they had already signed him. He had already signed a 2-year two-way, which is not very common, but he did that last year. So I guess they figure. But, you know, I could see him playing some significant minutes early on until they get fully healthy. But so keep an eye on Mamu. All right, so we'll move on to the Cavaliers. Of course, we know that Cavaliers were very busy in the offseason. And the big guys they lost were Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, Rajon Rondo, and they added Donovan Mitchell and Ricky Rubio, Robin Lopez, and Raul Neto. As we talked about earlier, Rubio suffered a torn ACL, and he's hopeful to be back in action sometime in December. So they got a couple of months they got to play without him. So, Drew, how are this new revamped Cavaliers featuring Donovan Mitchell? I would say would you call them pretty much a lock for second place in this division?
Yeah, in the division, I think this is pretty much a lock for second place because you're betting on the talent. You know, I mean, no other team has this level of young and proven talent kind of combined. And, you know, the Bucks are a little bit different because they're more on the veteran side, but all these other young teams don't have what they do. I mean, I love Evan Mobley, watched him obviously in college. I think the upside there is a 20-10 big who can contend for Defensive Player of the Year annually. I love Jarrett Allen's just kind of confidence as a rim protector and in the role that he plays. He knows he's not a score-first guy. He's not going to dazzle you with post moves and three-point shots, but he will contest everything at the rim. He plays super hard. We're going to see about Isaac Okoro. I mean, he hasn't really got a chance to flash. I'm assuming he starts. I mean, I know we have him on our projected depth chart as the guy, so we'll see. And then, you know, I think Garland and Donovan Mitchell offensively have to be one of the most potent backcourts. Defensively, there will be questions. But I think the two big concerns are, you know, at their big positions. You've got Kevin Love and Robin Lopez as your backups. I think Kevin Love had kind of a resurgent year last year, but does he maintain that? I don't know. Robin Lopez is another guy who's kind of on the downturn. I know you only want him for kind of a bruising big, but can he even hold up and do that? So I'm a little bit worried on some of the depth on this team. Like I look at small forward, and if Okoro doesn't pan out, you're trotting out, you know, Cedi Osman, not really hyped about that. You know, I think shooting guard is their strongest position because you've got, you know, Mitchell and you've got Karis LeVert, but this is a very top-heavy team. I love the youth, and I think the top players, you know, this is a team that is a year away from, I think, being a year away. Like, I think this year they'll be good. I think they're a playoff squad. I think they'll come in second in this division. But I think next year is where we're going to really get to judge this Cavs team and be like, did this trade work out? Are the aspirations are being fulfilled, or did this kind of go in the wrong direction? But they're a solid squad. I don't see any glaring weakness in the starting five, at least.
Above or under 50 wins?
Oh, I'm going to say just under. I'm going to say they come in just under because I think they're going to have to find time to gel. You know, Darius Garland has to figure out how he works with Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell has to figure out how he works with Darius Garland. You know, I think it's going to take them some time to gel. I can see this team hitting like a post-All-Star game stride where they kind of get hot. But I think the first 2-3 months of the season, they'll be above 500, but they won't be like, you know, blowing the doors off people.
Right. How about you, Maverick? Over or under 50 wins?
I'm going to go under slight. They're going to get really close. I think they have a chance to get over 50, though.
Yeah.
This team intrigues me so much with their offseason moves. So let me start with the negatives. They were ranked 5th last year in defensive rating. Their backcourt of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell is going to be very, very tough to maintain that. And in addition to that defense rating, you're going to put even more pressure on Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen because you really have no front court depth to help whenever they're out of the game or they get in foul trouble. Okoro is a great perimeter defender, but if you put Okoro on their top guard, now you're going to have two undersized guards going to be guarding the 2 and the 3 on the opposing teams. It's going to be tough to maintain that 5th defensive rating. I would be pretty worried about that. However, they're 20th. They were ranked 20th last year in offensive rating. That is going to skyrocket. I think their offense has improved greatly. And I know that Drew mentioned that the depth isn't exactly there because of the question marks with Kevin Love. Karis LeVert provides some, and Chetty Osman is, a little here and there. He's not going to be that much of a needle mover. But I like their bench a lot. I think it fits well. I think that bringing back Ricky Rubio after he played so well with Darius Garland whenever Colin Sexton got hurt, I think that was a great move. Ricky Rubio, he won't be coming back until December, so we'll have to wait for that a little while longer. But bringing him back was smart. Karis LeVert is going to provide an offensive punch if they even need one. And I think that Kevin Love will maintain this. I think he fits well with the 6-man role. He's not going to be asked to do too much on the defensive end, even though, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle if they're going to be playing Kevin Love, Darius Garland, and Donovan Mitchell on the floor at the same time. It's just a matter of the defensive schemes that Coach Bickerstaff comes up with. He showed some good schemes last year with Darius Garland trying to hide him, but now you also deal with Donovan Mitchell. So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. I like the team a lot, though.
It's hard to hide 40% of your team. So, I agree with what you guys are saying. I think one of the issues is, I don't know if Donovan Mitchell would fall in this category. I wouldn't say Donovan's injury prone. No, he's been pretty healthy, right?
Yeah, he's been pretty good.
He has a pretty clean build.
Yeah, but the other 3 of the top 4 guards, Garland, Rubio, and LeVert, don't have a good track record with injuries. Now, LeVert, mentioned the other day that this is the healthiest he's felt in quite some time, and we know, he can definitely perform at a 6th man of the year type level, but they're going to need to keep that health until Rubio, gets into the swing of things. And the other thing is, and we talked about this before, but I side with Drew on the depth issue because really, Kevin Love, you don't want him, you really don't want him playing power forward and Lopez, you don't want him on the perimeter. Osman's not a good defender. And some of your other options are Dylan Windler, who we really, he was a fairly high draft pick about 3 years ago, but he's always hurt. And you got Lamar Stevens. He's played in spurts, and Dean Wade, but Dean Wade's not a defensive player. So you get a lot of offensive guys, So Okoro, he might be the make or break point with this team. If Okoro plays up to the level where he was drafted, if he starts playing, he's already doing well defensively, but he's definitely overall has not matched what we thought he could be. And but if he comes along, this team could be really tough to beat. Fantasy wise, the guys I would look for would be, of course, Okoro. Mobley, we got to expect him to continue to improve. He a fantastic rookie year. I only expect his numbers to increase. LeVert is going to have to play a lot of minutes, when Rubio's out, and I expect he'll still probably play a good number of minutes even when Rubio's healthy. So he's the type of guy can give you anywhere from 15 to 20 points, average somewhere in that range. So, he's a guy, if he stays healthy, he could be a nice sleeper too. So fantasy-wise, I expect Donovan Mitchell's numbers to go down because, he's surrounded with better talent here and more scoring options. So I don't expect him to be so prolific. And of course, Kevin Love, I think, he's definitely on the downside. And I think this team, the way it's built, I think they would prefer for him not to play a ton of minutes. I'm guessing, So, alrighty, let's move on to the Pistons. Another interesting team. A lot of new faces here. They traded Jeremy Grant to Portland, and they traded Kelly Olynyk to Utah, along with Saban Lee. They've added Alex Burks, Nerlens Noel, Kevin Knox. Wasn't Knox with them last year?
He was in. No,
he wasn't. Okay, so
I don't think he was.
Knox,
He's been all over the place.
Right. No, and then they added Kemba, who's not playing in training camp, I believe, because they eventually want to trade him or come to some kind of buyout agreement. Though he's not getting paid a ton. He's only somewhere between $8 and $10 million a year. And they have Bojan Bogdanovic that they acquired from Utah. And then they have those two beauty draft picks that I'm very high on in Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren. So what do you make of this team, Drew? A lot of new pieces, a lot of young talent, a lot of interesting fantasy options. This team's going to be very interesting.
I think this team's going to kind of become everyone talks about the Hornets, like the fun team to watch. They were fun to watch. I think this team's going to take that mantle. I don't think they're going to be very good still. A lot of young pieces. They're still just not seasoned enough to, be a playoff team to make a run. But I think a backcourt of Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey is going to be super fun. You've got kind of more just the crafty, ball in his hand, just a really complete player in Cade Cunningham. And then you have Jaden Ivey, who's a freak athlete who he's going to have some Ja Morant like highlight dunks this year. I'm just telling you right now. He's going to have a couple plays that make you go, God damn. I don't know how fantasy relevant Jaden will be just because he won't have the ball in his hand as much. But I think from an actual basketball standpoint, I think he's going to be a nice kind of compliment, especially as he gets more and more used to the NBA game. Jalen Duren, I know we have him kind of buried on our depth chart. I think he might find playing time sooner rather than later, especially if this team doesn't really start to, make much noise. But yeah, I like this team. I think like Bogdanovic was a great ad. We talked about him, I think, last week about how he's going to just take some scoring pressure off the young guys, kind of a savvy veteran to help alleviate the focus.
Add space. Yeah,
exactly. Sadiq Bey had that 50-point game out of nowhere last year. Now, this is not me predicting Sadiq Bey, 30 points per game season incoming. But, there's a lot of nice pieces. Personally, the only person on this roster that I'm pretty much completely out on has got to be Killian Hayes. I just think that was a whiff. I would probably try to move off of that. At this point with Cunningham, with Ivy, you bring in Alex Burks, the ghost of Kemba Walker. I just don't really know where he fits in at this point. I would try to move off that if possible. But young team, I'm a big Cunningham guy, big Ivy guy. I think those two alone are going to be worth tuning into. And they'll probably surprise some people. I think they might catch some teams, with their pants down every once in a while. And I could see them having a couple big wins, but definitely not a playoff roster.
Maverick?
I think the Bogdanovic move, it made it seem like they were looking for a play-in spot. But I agree. I don't think that they have enough to get to that point. And I think pretty early on in the year, you're going to see more development opportunities for Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, which I hope happens. What I don't want to happen this year is Cade Cunningham keeps his usage rate pretty high. I believe last year it was 27.6. I don't want it to keep it that high and hinder the development of Jaden Ivey, because I noticed that a lot of younger guards and younger ball dominant players that play together, sometimes there's a little bit of an ego problem, and I don't want that for either of those guys. I'm also very high on both of them, and I really want them to succeed. So I know that Coach Dwayne Casey, he's going to have to really look at both of these guys and get them equal opportunity to develop, or else it might hurt them later on, not just this season, but for their development for the entire careers as well. But overall, for this season as a team, I think Marvin Bagley might have an opportunity finally, if he just stays healthy and just stays consistent, to get some sort of opportunity to get himself to where he can show why he was the second overall pick. So, I mean, look for him to have some sort of impact on this roster, especially if they play poorly at the beginning of the year. But yeah, I can't see this team making the play-in. I think they're going to be in the lottery again.
Yeah. I agree with you there. And from a fantasy perspective, but by the way, I'm not too worried about Cunningham. I think he's a willing passer, so I don't think you have to worry about Ivy. Maybe he's a little ball dominant. So, and I think that's something he has to break out of. He was definitely a little bit too ball dominant at Purdue. But fantasy wise, this team, obviously I expect Cunningham, even with the additions, I think he's going to continue to grow. So I think he's a nice fantasy option. I like Isaiah Stewart to make some steps forward, as now that he's starting to develop a 3-point shot. Ivy, I think, is going to be, a regular starter getting big minutes for this team. So I think he's going to be one of the more productive rookies. Now, wasn't overly efficient at Purdue, and I don't expect him to be overly efficient this year. So even though I think he's going to be one of the more productive rookies in terms of totals, don't look for a lot of efficiency from Jaden Ivey this year. So then, what's interesting then is, when you look deeper into this roster, is they have a lot of guys who are kind of like at the make or break points of their career. And specifically, I'm talking about Hayes, Kevin Knox, and Marvin Bagley. Now, I was much higher on Bagley than the other two coming out. I never was high on Knox. So I think Bagley of those three, has the best chance to emerge as the sixth man, so to speak. And Knox, to me, is the least likely. Hayes is kind of interesting because he's totally revamped his shot this year. And that's probably the biggest drawback on him is his shot. With Duren, I think Duren is the youngest player in the NBA. So that's why we have him on the depth chart behind Isaiah Stewart and Nerlens Noel. Now, if Bagley turns out to be, not coming, not playing up to par, Knox doesn't play up to par, you could see a situation where Isaiah Stewart moves the power forward and, Duren maybe starts over Noel. I would expect that. But right now, the way the roster shakes out, I think he's going to be fighting Noel for the backup center minutes. But, Duren also, actually probably could play some at power forward. But either way, they have a lot of big bodies. And we're not even talking about Isaiah Livers, who's, really he's dealt with some injuries. And he has a nice shot and is a pretty good defender and gets you some rebounds. So he could even emerge. And I actually think Livers will outperform Knox this year. The one guy I'm worried about fantasy-wise is Saddiq Bey. Not because I think Saddiq Bey is a very solid player, and I think he was a top 40 fantasy producer last year. Mm-hmm. But you just think, you have Cunningham emerging. You have Ivy now in the mix. You have Bogdanovich now in the mix. You have Stewart, who's developing an outside shot. You might get some big minutes from Bagley. So I'm just worried about, the things that Bey, contributes, which is all around. He's a very all around contributor. I just think, the minutes and just the ball, the touches just might not be there this year as this team develops. So I'm going to ask you now, Maverick, what do you think the next team we're going to talk about is the Pacers? Who finishes in last place in this? Is it the Pistons or the Pacers?
I think it's Pacers. I don't think it's a question. I think the Pacers are going to be one of the worst teams in the NBA. I think the Pistons are going to be somewhat competitive with Cunningham and Ivy. And and Bogdanovich, if they play, as long as they play, they're going to be more competitive than the Pacers. The Pacers are in full development rebuild mode, and they're not hiding it at all. They're probably going to trade Miles Turner and Buddy Hield very soon for picks, and then it's going to be really, really developmental. A developmental year for Halliburton, Chris Duarte, even players such as Jalen Smith, who have showed they can play on both ends. Jalen Smith can shoot the ball and play a little bit of defense. He's a 4 or 5 that could make some sort of impact. Aaron Nesmith never really got that much of an opportunity with Boston, and he came out of the draft as a knockdown shooter. He never really got into rhythm with Boston. He could have an opportunity now to get into the rotation. And their high lottery pick in Ben Mathurin. That's another shot creator you have right there. It's going to be develop these young guys, not to be too competitive, just to get the ball, let them develop. But the Pacers are going to be the worst team in the division.
All right.
Yeah.
How about you? What you agree, Drew?
Pacers will be because you look at their roster as it stands now and think there's no way. Hield's kind of a vet. Miles Turner's a vet. They're going to be better, but like Matt said, those guys aren't going to be on this roster much longer. I wouldn't be surprised if they're gone before the season even really starts, and they're sure as hell are going to be gone probably before the All-Star break. So I love Tyrese Halliburton. I think the Kings made a horrible decision getting rid of him. I think in terms of what you want from a point guard in today's NBA, he literally to a T checks every single box. He's a good guy who wants to be a leader, who's a great passer, shoots 40+% from three. I think that was a mistake on the Kings' part. So I love him. Fantasy-wise, go grab Tyrese Halliburton because he is going to be the driving force of this team. His numbers are going to be great.
Top 20 fantasy producer.
Hot take or not, he might average 20 points and 10 assists a game this year.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that's in the ballpark of outcomes. I love Ben Mathurin as a West Coast guy. I've watched a lot of him play. I think he's a great complement to Halliburton as a great athlete who can score in a variety of ways. Get him developing as soon as possible. Hield's a shooter. Mathurin has the potential to be a 20-point-per-game scorer in this league in a variety of ways. Again, another West Coast guy. I like Chris Duarte. I think he's the type of glue wing player that most teams need. He's on the older side for a young guy because he stayed, but Chris Duarte is a really great piece. I think Jalen Smith is going to be a sleeper in fantasy because when he starts taking on starter minutes, which will happen, he was not great in Phoenix just because of the way that team played, what their goals and aspirations were. But once he got to Indiana I think he played like 20-ish games there, he averaged 13 and 8, shot 53% from the field, 37% from three. Great numbers. Fantasy-wise, that's going to matter, especially if he starts seeing 25, 26 minutes a game. At center, Isaiah Jackson, I think, is just going to absorb those minutes from Miles Turner. So I look at him, too, as a guy who's going to probably be a good rebounder for your bench and just to kind of fill a stat sheet. They will come in last in division, but there's reasons to be excited. I think there's some great pieces on this team that just need to develop. And in a few years' time, the Pacers will be, I think, a really solid franchise again.
Okay. I didn't introduce. I should run over like we did for the other teams. How this team has changed. By the way, they lost Brogdon, Malcolm Brogdon, T.J. Warren, Ricky Rubio, and they gained Daniel Tice and Aaron Nesmith, who we mentioned, and their draft picks were Ben Mathurin, Andrew Nebhard, and Kendall Brown. I don't know if they were their draft picks, but they're the rookies that are on this team. We didn't even talk about Kendall Brown. As far I agree with a lot of what you guys said. I've never understood why they've been so hell-bent to get rid of Miles Turner. Can anyone fill me in there? What's
I think timeline-wise at this point is more of a timeline thing. I've always really liked what Miles Turner offers at the center position.
Right.
He's a great rim protector, moves well, and can stretch the floor.
Right.
I think they had the issue with him and Sabonis kind of battling.
But they don't have that issue anymore.
And now I think, though, they're looking at the timeline. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he seems like a pretty well-spoken, like mellow guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if behind the scenes there's some look, man, if you're I don't want to be here. I've been in the league 5,
Well,
6
at
years
this
now.
point, I
Get
mean,
me
they've been
out.
talking about trading him for like
Exactly. You
3
clearly don't
years.
want me here.
Right.
I'm not wanted. Get me out.
Yeah.
But
Now
I
they
do like Miles Turner.
right. Yeah, they burned that bridge. I could understand wanting to get rid of Buddy Hield, but I've never understood why they were so hell bent on getting. But yeah, I forgot about the Sabonis kind of overlap there. But so if Hield goes, I think Ben Mathurin automatically launches into contention for Rookie of the Year. As it is, He might be in contention because to me, when I look at this roster, he's already probably going to be their sixth man. So, and I upside wise, I don't think it's close between him and Chris Duarte. So, now Duarte, is probably the better player right this minute, probably, but Ben Mathurin is going to pass him soon. You mentioned Jalen Smith. I agree. Fantasy sleeper. Isaiah Jackson, super athlete. Very, very similar in some ways to our guest, who's going to be on Daimion Collins. Jackson's a great shot blocker. He's raw, but he's working on his shot. So he could develop into the next Miles Turner. So yeah, there is some talent, but I agree they do finish in last place. Alrighty, so we'll move on to the Pacific Division, and we'll start off with Drew's favorite team, the Los Angeles Lakers. They finished 11th in the West last year with a 33-49 record. Their key departures are Malik Monk, Taylor Horton-Tucker, Stanley Johnson, Carmelo Anthony, DJ Augustine, A.V. Bradley, Ken Bazemore, Dwight Howard, and Wayne Ellington. And in their never-ending revolving door there, they added Patrick Beverley, Lonnie Walker, Damon Jones, Thomas Bryant, Troy Brown, Juan Toscano Anderson, and Dennis Schroeder, which was recently. We talked about that last week on the show. And lastly, they drafted Max Christie from Michigan State. So, Drew, tell us your thoughts on your favorite team.
Oh my God. Okay. So first and foremost, this team, I think, has play-in game aspirations. I'm not going to sit there and be so ignorant to the fact that LeBron and AD missed a lot of time last year. You get a healthy LeBron James through 60 games. You get a healthy Anthony Davis through at least 60 games. You're going to have pretty solid odds to make the play-in just on those two alone, barring some crazy unexpected regression from LeBron. But the rest of this roster makes no sense. It continues to not make any sense. And I just don't really have any faith. I mean, I'm a Warriors fan. Anyone who listens to the podcast knows. Juan Toscano Anderson did not play for us. He averaged 20 towel waves and 40, claps a game. He is now listed as their backup power forward to their most fragile player in Anthony Davis. So you're telling me that if Anthony Davis continues the trend of missing 20, 30 games a season, Juan Toscano Anderson is going to be absorbing starter minutes for an extended period of time this season, and I'm supposed to buy this team as any sort of contender? No way in hell. That's not to mention Russell Westbrook, whatever that saga is going to be. Maybe he's going to be off the team. I mean, they're clearly looking to get rid of him. I would, everyone wants to talk about, but he puts up numbers. Okay, well, anybody can put up numbers. If you give them that much, usage, give the ball in their hands and let them play, and they don't miss time. He missed one game that he was kind of forced to sit out. Schroeder, I think, is interesting. He left on bad terms last time. I do think that gives you some solid scoring punch. From a fantasy standpoint, I would be looking at him because there's a reality where he takes over the starting point guard role on this team sooner rather than later. And his last stint with the Lakers, he was at, I think, 14 points, 5 assists a game, a couple rebounds. He gives you those numbers. You definitely want him on your bench. He's usable. Patrick Beverley, I think is, like I said earlier, is a match to a bundle of TNT. I think he brings this team what they need: intensity, defense, dare I say even maybe some leadership. But I just think that when you're looking at this roster, this dude is not going to be – at the end of the day, he doesn't have the clout to stare down on LeBron James, stare down Anthony Davis. In Minnesota, he could get away with it because you had a bunch of kids who didn't know how to win. He had been to the playoffs, but you're dealing with arguably the greatest player of all time, a multi-time All-Star, Anthony Davis. If he starts to get annoying, they're going to ignore him. They're going to literally just ignore him. And then, Kendrick Nunn, we haven't seen play since the bubble. I like Lonnie Walker. I don't think he ever got a full fair shake with the Spurs. So he could maybe kind of, impress some people. But you look at the rest of this roster, and I mean, like I said, Juan Toscano-Anderson, Damian Jones was another Warriors cast-off. Austin Reeves, the second coming of Alex Caruso. But do you really want him soaking up major minutes for you? This team will probably make the play-in. If LeBron can keep turning back the clock, they might be able to sneak into like that 8 seed, but this team's not getting out of the first round.
Are you buying or selling Anthony Davis? He recently said he's determined to stay healthy. But now keep in mind, he hasn't played over 62 games since 2017-18. The last 2 years, the Lakers, he's played less than a full season. He played a total of 76 games. So to me, he's the key to this team. Are you buying or selling that they get 60 games out of him?
So am I buying or selling the amount of games he plays?
Yeah.
I'm gonna sell. I mean, at some point you fool me once, shame on me. You fool me, you said 2017, you fool me 7 times in a row. At that point, you just can't stay healthy. Look, Anthony Davis can say he's determined to stay healthy. I'm determined to become a billionaire. That doesn't really matter. Until I see it, I don't care. Is he a hell of a talent? Absolutely. Is he a top 5 talent in the league? Could he have MVP potential? Of course. I'm not denying his talent, but I need to see it. Your best ability as a professional athlete is your availability. I don't care if he averages 80 points and 40 rebounds a game. If he plays 1 game a season, you are useless to me.
Would you call him soft? Would you call him
absolutely?
Would you call it? Would you say his effort comes and goes?
Oh yeah, I've been. I don't want to say against Anthony Davis because I don't have any personal vendetta. But I just don't think he loves basketball. Right. He does not like LeBron. Say what you want, whether you're a Jordan guy, whatever. The man loves the game, and he does whatever he can to continue to perform at a high level. And I will always give him that credit. This man is investing millions into his body to ensure his production does not wane. LeBron could just say, "I don't care." He could do a Shaq and just kind of roll out of bed and go collect his check because he's LeBron James, but he doesn't, and I respect that. Anthony Davis is out here playing Grand Theft Auto on streams and saying, "I haven't touched a basketball in 4 months." After you played 40 games and got bounced in the first round, dude, your job is to play the game of basketball. You literally have everyone's dream job, and you're just like, if I'm healthy, I'm good. So look, I can't get behind that. Maybe that I'm old school, but
I'm totally with agreement with you. I thought Anthony Davis was one of the most dominant, if not the most dominant college basketball player I ever saw. And he's played like that in spurts in the NBA, but I find him to be his effort wanes, and, comes and goes. And I think he's soft. And, just the fact when you look at this starting lineup that he insists on playing power forward when the best thing for this team for him to be, instead of starting Thomas Bryant or Damian Jones at center, that should be Anthony Davis's spot. But, they have to cater to him. So Maverick, over or under 60 games for Anthony Davis this year?
I'm going to go the opposite direction, and I'm going to say over. It's not going to be that much, but I think it's going to be over. I think that this season he'll finally turn it around, and it still won't make a difference. This team doesn't fit. It doesn't fit at all. I don't know what direction. Well, I know the direction. They're looking for athletic defenders, is what it seems like. But Drew already touched on this. He's a Warriors fan. He saw one of their acquisitions that was somewhat hyped up by Lakers fans with Juan Toscano-Anderson. He didn't play at all. Lonnie Walker was, even when the Spurs were in the play-in, he still didn't make any impact. What impact will he make with the Lakers? that's any different from a legendary coach with Popovich. I don't know what's going on with Kendrick Nunn. I have no idea. I know the injury is some sort of, I believe it's some sort of soreness. He was out all year. And I'm going to reference Twitter because there was a lineup during the open practice with the Lakers. It was Westbrook, Kendrick Nunn, LeBron, Anthony Davis, and then Daimion Jones, where Coach Darvin Ham then said, Daimion Jones, we're going to give him the green light to shoot 3-pointers. I have no idea what's going on. I've lost it. I've lost it with this team. I want to see LeBron succeed. I don't want him to kind of go out where, I watch, I'm a Mavs fan, and I watched Dirk lose his last couple of years, and I don't want it to go out like that.
Yeah,
but how this is going, it's going in that way.
Yeah, but this is his doing. Unlike Dirk, LeBron has created this situation. LeBron has created this situation where, he wanted Russell Westbrook, and, he wanted to be on the Lakers. He wanted to be teammates with Anthony Davis. And so now you have the situation where, they have players coming in and out every year on 1-year contracts. There's no continuity. They have to kind of just get the dregs of free agency, who will sign for the veteran minimum. And so that's how you end up with this collection of players. And we listed out, how many players have changed. I'm curious, by the way, has Daimion Jones ever shot more? I bet he's a 3-point shooter. Has he shot 53 pointers in his career?
I believe
I will
in his
reference
career.
that for you right now.
I believe in his career, and I might be wrong, but I don't think I am. I believe he's made 16 3-pointers in his career. 16?
I
believe it's 16.
All right. I asked if he made 50.
Yeah, 13. It's 13 made on 43 attempts in his career.
So he hasn't even attempted 53s in his career. And this is the guy who's going to start at center and shoot threes for you. Okay. All right. So my thoughts are that if Anthony Davis plays over 60 games, and I think they will get 60 or more out of him, that this team will probably be the 8th and last team in the playoffs. That's as far as I'm going to go with predictions for them. Fantasy-wise, Drew hit the nail on the head. Obviously, if Westbrook goes, Schroeder moves right up there, and it's going to be his fantasy value is going to shoot up. And Austin Reeves and Nunn will probably, move up a tick as well. Right now, Westbrook, you got to be worried about, where his fantasy production. Usually he's a great fantasy producer, but who knows where he's going to end up, how this is all going to shake out. LeBron, of course, you're going to get good numbers for him, but, he's on that downturn. And of course, Davis, as we've, beat it to death, that you can't count on him anymore to, actually, I don't think he's played over 70 games in a long time. So the one guy I'm going to keep an eye on is Thomas Bryant. Thomas Bryant's still young. I think he's 25. He is, since college, he's changed his body. He's developed an outside shot. He's never been a huge fantasy producer, but, especially if Davis misses a lot of time, Bryant, I think, is going to turn out to be the best of the bigs on this team. Not counting LeBron. He's the best, to me, beside what Anthony Davis. So he actually, if Davis misses, any amount of time, he could put up some really nice numbers. Also, I think he's ultimately going to end up being the starter here, or at least getting starter minutes, 25 minutes a game over Daimion Jones. I mean, Daimion Jones really has never shown anybody anything. At least Bryant played fairly well with the Wizards when he was healthy. So, yeah, so we'll move off of the Lakers. I by the way, this division is a very strong division. I'm predicting that the Lakers will finish 4th, but still be 8th in the conference. That's how strong I think this division is. So moving on to the other Los Angeles team, we have the Clippers. Clippers basically lost Isaiah Hartenstein, and Rodney Hood, who didn't play a lot for them. They signed John Wall, and in the draft they got Moussa Diabate, who's on a 2-way contract. So Maverick, what do you? So basically, I say the big news, I guess, with the Clippers is not so much as beside the addition of Wall is the fact that they're going to get Kawhi back. Paul George looks healthy. So Norman Powell is going to be with them for the full season. So what do you make of the Clippers?
The Clippers terrify me. They're healthy. They come back with a healthy Kawhi, like you mentioned. Paul George is healthy. John Wall, I'm not sure what you're going to get out of him, but you're not going to be asking for too much because, the team is so deep in different levels. And what I mean by that is in the playoffs, it's no secret that almost every team goes small. I don't know if there's a team that can do that better than the Clippers. Now, if a team wants to go big against the Clippers, they can still do that. They have a Zubac, who is proven to be a solid role player. They have Covington, who's a 4 and 5, who's able to divot the post and the perimeter if switched on. You still have Batum. Batum played the 5 in their improbable run to the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago. And you also have Norman Powell, who's, basically an 18-point per game scorer. Whenever he was traded to the Clippers, he averaged 22 a game in 5 games before he was hurt. But still, 22 a game is fantastic. You're going to bring him off the bench. And in the playoffs, if, let's say, Wall or Reggie Jackson's not doing well, you just got to plug in Norman Powell, and there's your scoring. It is ridiculous how good this team is. Right now, if you still have to deal with the load, if you're going to still deal with the load management with Kawhi, which we don't know about, we haven't seen him for a year. I don't think he's going to stop load managing, but if he just cuts it down, this team is going to be first in the division. I have them first in the division. It is such a good, deep team, and playoff wise, it doesn't really get much better than this for how switchable and how deep they are, both as a big lineup and small.
Yeah. When you want to talk about depth, Luke Kennard right now doesn't even have a place to play. He's right now like their 3rd string shooting guard.
And he's probably their best shooter.
Yeah.
He's their best shooter.
Yeah. Covington can knock him down, Powell can knock him down, but Kennard's probably their best pure shooter. We talked to Law Murray, who covers the Clippers for the Athletics about a month ago, and he was saying that the Clippers probably will not get rid of Kennard because they need that. They do. If this team does lack something, is outside shooting, and he is the best pure shooter on the team. So hopefully they'll find a way to get him some minutes too. But as you say, all these guys, if you look at their, the top 10 guys on the roster, 8 of them are 30 or older. And there is going to be load management. There's no doubt about it, because a lot of these guys have had Wall, George, Leonard have all had injury issues. So there's definitely going to be minutes to go around. Drew, so what are your thoughts on the Clippers?
Yeah, I think, Mav kind of covered it top to bottom. They're super deep. They can play in a variety of ways. When healthy, they have arguably the best duo in basketball in Kawhi and Paul George. It all sounds great. But, and again, this is kind of going back to the conversation around the Bucks. It's basically do or die for them. If they do not win a championship in the next probably 2 years, it's over. The window's over. The age is going to be a problem. Rich, you said 8 out of 10 guys are over 30. You know, Kawhi now has a serious injury on his body. He had the one from the Spurs. Paul George had that, broken leg years ago, and he's been banged up. John Wall's played 40 games, I think, in the past 3 years. So I love the team on paper, but I have to see it. The last time we really saw them in the playoffs, they had, strength. They were okay, but you didn't confidently go, like, oh, that's the team to beat. This has to be it this year. I'm hoping Kawhi is on a mission. And I know load management is going to be a thing, but I would love to see Kawhi come out and kind of somewhat buck that trend and just say, like, I'm not going to play 82, but I'm going to play as much as I can, because I think when you look at the West, seeding does matter. This is a team that doesn't want to run into a really tough first round matchup, in my opinion. If I'm the Clippers, I want to have as easy a road as possible because I'm worried about injury, just general wear and tear. If I have to go a 7-game series in round 1 against a really good opponent and then follow it up in round 2 against a really good opponent, that's a lot of miles to put on these guys. So I would like to see Kawhi kind of buck that trend and maybe try to get closer to like that 65 game, even maybe 70 game mark. Maybe keep the rest games to like 12 to 15. I think Norman Powell, both as a fantasy asset and a real life asset, is a huge piece for this team because he does give you wiggle room now with the Paul George, Kawhi Leonard rest. You know that if you rest one of those guys, you basically have a 20-point per game score ready to plug in at either shooting guard or small forward, can score from all levels. Fantasy wise, you want to roster him because I think his production, if those guys are healthy and playing, won't be as great. He'll still give you probably 15 to 16 a game easily. Maybe he gets in that 18-20 range or their offense is really awesome. But you automatically, again, know Kawhi's out, Paul George is out. You're starting him in fantasy, and you're like, I'm going to take my 20 points, 4 assists, 5 rebounds, and be thrilled. So great team. The clock is ticking. We've been hearing about this team now since, I think, 2018 when they put this together. And we always keep saying, great move here. Oh, this guy's a great addition. They've got depth. Well, at some point, it's got to start to come to fruition. So I think this team has top 5 seeding potential for sure. And, I would say definitely has a championship window. It's just going to matter about health.
Do they win their division?
I'm going to say no until I see it. I think it's them and the Warriors. We'll get there. I think it's them and the Warriors for sure, like at the top.
Right.
But I just because I don't want to say yes and then all of a sudden find out Kawhi's going to sit 30 games.
Right.
And then it's like, well, if Kawhi sits 30 games and Paul George misses, 15, 20, they're going to make the playoffs, but they're not going to win the division if that happens.
All right. So for all our listeners, Drew will give you the over-under for the Clippers after the season's over.
Yes.
So my thoughts, I like them to win the division, and I'll tell you why. Because if John Wall doesn't want to play one night, they start Reggie Jackson. If Paul George doesn't want to play one night, they can start Terrence Mann or Norman Powell. If Kawhi Leonard doesn't want to play one night, they can start Terrence Mann or Norman Powell. By the way, I was incorrect. It's 7 of the top 10 are 30 or older because I looked it up. Norman Powell's 29. So 29 and a half basically now. So fantasy-wise, I agree about Powell. I also like Terrence Mann. We actually thought that he was going to have a bigger season, or at least I did. I thought he would have a more of a breakout season last year, but his numbers did increase pretty much across the board. I don't ever think he's going to be a big-time scorer, but he's going to be one of those guys that's going to give you production in a lot of different areas. And he's obviously one of the younger players here. So I think he's going to be one of those players that picks up the slack when the older guys sit. And I also like Zubac to maybe cut into Marcus Morris's numbers a little more. He's still only 25. I know it seems like he's been around forever, but he's basically just reaching his peak. And he too has been on a nice, steady increase. So I could see him being a little bit of a fantasy sleeper. And of course, I think Reggie Jackson, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard and John Wall are all going to kind of cancel each other out. And we've talked about load management. And if any team's going to use it a lot, it's going to be this team. So, yeah, I don't think you can count on your usual production that we've grown used to from any of those guys. And yeah, I think all their numbers are going to kind of dip a little bit, but collectively, I do like this team, and I do like them to. It's going to be a tight race with them and Golden State, but I'm going to take the Clippers here.
So, do you think the Lakers right now would rather have Zubac than Daimion Jones?
Oh yeah.
I wonder, man. Can you imagine if they had Zubac at the center? Then AD could probably play the floor. It's almost like, almost like what could have been.
Yeah. Well, that's the Lakers for you. There's a written rule there. If you're young and you're talented, you have to go. All right. Speaking of young, we're going to totally switch gears, and I would think it's probably going to be unanimous that we expect this team to finish last in the division. That's the Sacramento Kings, but let me know if you disagree with that. But what they lost was Dante DiVincenzo, Justin Holiday, Mo Harkless. Mo Harkless has been mentioned many times on this show already. Jeffrey Lamb, Damian Jones, and Josh Jackson. They added Malik Monk, Kevin Heater, Sam Merrill, and let's see who else. That's basically significant. And then in the draft, they got the one of the stars of Summer League, Keegan Murray. Now, one thing of note, and there hasn't really been anything about this, but last year they shut down Rashawn Holmes, who was their starting center for a while. And the reason that is because he was accused of domestic violence. Now, I know he's in training camp. So I don't know if that issue is settled or not, but he is back with the team. I don't know if he has legal things, waiting for him in the wings, but he's definitely back with the team and so forth and so on. So Drew, what do you make about the Kings? They look a little different this year. Have they improved?
I'm going to say they've improved. I think you have to give them improvement. The thing that does suck, and I know I'm generally the harsh critic on the show, but, I'm going to give them credit. I think they improved, and I still think it just isn't enough in this division, which is very good, and this conference, which is very good. I'm a huge Sabonis guy from a fantasy standpoint. I've been smashed that draft button on Sabonis for years now. He is a walking double-double. De'Aaron Fox, I think, will kind of have a bounce-back year with the weapons and the shooters around him now. I think Malik Monk and Herter are great pickups because those are two pretty cheap options, both in real life and in fantasy, if you need to increase your shooting. Those guys are extremely valuable at close to 40% each. Harrison Barnes is Harrison Barnes. If you were to take an aggregate average NBA player, I think Harrison Barnes is literally the definition of like the 50 out of 100. He's not amazing. He's not bad, but he's serviceable. Keegan Murray will definitely, I think, slow down. We saw him do really well in Summer League. Obviously, was a force at Iowa, but I think the thing with Keegan is like he's now playing alongside Sabonis and Fox, who are 20-point per game scorers, as well as guys like, Barnes, Monk, Herter, who are going to need to get shots. I like the roster. I think this is definitely a better team than last year. They won 30 games. I could see them getting a 10-game improvement with this roster easily, but I just don't think it's enough to make the playoffs, which kind of sucks because now they own the longest playoff drought in North American professional sports. Shout out to the Mariners. But yeah, it's going to be, I think, a year where from a talent standpoint, they'll be fine, but it's still going to be frustrating going, wow, we made all these moves and it's still not enough. So 40 wins is probably their ceiling.
How hard are you going to be rooting for them to finish higher than the Lakers?
Oh, insanely hard. In absolute, every time they play, I'm going to literally tape over all my Warriors jerseys and have like Sabonis taped over the back of whatever. Because I first off, you never want to see a franchise, I think, struggle this long, this bad. It's not a good look for the league as a whole. It sucks for the players, especially when there's talented players on this team. If these guys had nobody, they were just an absolute wasteland of talent, I'd be like, well, that's kind of what you get. But I'm like, Sabonis as a multi-time All-Star. Fox has been in that kind of upper echelon of point guards for a while. Barnes went from the Warriors here. Keegan Murray is a promising rookie. So, it just kind of sucks. But if they're lucky, they could probably squeak into the play-in. But it's going to take every ounce of them hitting. And you're going to probably need the Warriors, the Clippers, and the Suns, one of those three, to really disappoint this year.
Right. And there's a good chance that there's going to be a team with a winning record in the West that doesn't make the Final Eight.
This will probably be them. It will probably be them.
Well, I'm not saying it's going to be them, but I just think that there's going to be a team with a winning record that's probably not going to make playoffs in the West. Maverick, what are your thoughts on Sacramento?
I think Drew really just talked about everything that I was going to talk about. They did improve. They added Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter. I really like those additions. I think they're solid players, and I think they fit around De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis. I think they fit that. But also the internal development too. I think Davion Mitchell is going to have an improved year. I think he's going to build on his rookie year. And maybe in middle of the year, I could see Davion Mitchell starting at the 2. Taking on a tougher defensive matchups. That could definitely, that's definitely a possibility. I know the 2 is kind of up in the air with Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter, but Davion Mitchell should be in there too. I think he's going to show how much he improved in the offseason. And I think he's going to be even better defensively, and his offensive efficiency should jump a little bit. But yeah, I think they're going to finish last in the division. I think, like you were saying, it's unanimous. I don't know if they're going to have a 500 team. They might be a little bit worse than that. But, they did improve, and they have a solid team. It's just deep conference and deep division.
Yeah, I totally agree. I definitely think this team has improved. And I think they even have pretty solid depth. The one thing, from a fantasy perspective, I think, Monk is, trending in the right direction. And I think Fox, as Drew said, will benefit from being surrounded by a better cast. I think Huerter is in a position to, get a little more production now that he's away from Trae Young. And I think he looks to be the 6th man on that team. I suppose Davion Mitchell will give him a run, but I think Huerter is going to be the guy. Sabonis is going to be a stud again, fantasy wise. The 2 guys that I worry about is Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes has been very steady. It seems like every year he averages 16 points a game. And I think now with all these new weapons on the team, I think you might finally start seeing him take a dip. I could even see maybe, where Huerter starts and Barnes comes off the bench, that, that could happen. And with Keegan Murray, you're not going to see Keegan Murray that you saw in Summer League. Ultimately, I think he will be, the 3rd option on this team, but I don't think it's going to be this year. He's got to compete with too many guys, Monk, Huerter, Barnes, and even Rashawn Holmes. Rashawn Holmes can, he's averaged close to 15 points a game, and Holmes is going to get some playing time because he, unlike Sabonis, he can protect the rim. So, you're going to want him in there at times. And he also is a better, in my opinion, is a better outside shooter than Sabonis. So, I think Holmes, as long as he doesn't, these legal troubles, that no one's talked about for months, I guess they're behind him. But, yeah, so, I could see him getting significant minutes, and he can play the 4 or the 5. So I think Keegan Murray is, going to have a I think he'll be productive, but I don't think he's going to be ultra productive, and I don't think he's going to be in the Rookie of the Year running. All right. So the next team up is the Phoenix Suns. And as we know, they had the best record in the NBA last year. Obviously, first in the conference, first in the division. So what has happened with this team is JaVale McGee is gone. Aaron Holiday is gone. Alfred Payton's gone. Coming in is Josh Okogie and Jock Landale. Also, Jay Crowder, as we talked about quite a bit last week, is going to be gone, most likely. Crowder has, I guess, did he request a trade? I know he's been, I don't know.
I think he's requested a trade.
Yeah, he definitely made it clear that he was unhappy. We kind of took guesses as to what was going on, but now it's become clear that the Suns told him that he wanted a contract extension. The Suns were not willing to give him that, and also told him that he was most likely going to play behind Cam Johnson, which is interesting because Cameron Johnson certainly doesn't bring the defense or the toughness that Jay Crowder does, but he is a much better offensive player. So the other interesting piece of news in the offseason was, of course, the Suns tried to trade DeAndre Ayton because of the confrontation that he had with Coach Monty Williams last year in the playoffs, and come to find out this week at Media Day that Ayton and Monty Williams haven't spoken since last year's playoffs. That is insane. Now, we talked about last week about how this team seemed to be going in the wrong direction, and the more and more we hear, the worse and worse it gets. So, Mav, what do you kind of hard to believe that the star center and the head coach haven't talked in all that time.
Well, even with that being said, we haven't even touched about their last night's preseason game against the 36ers of the NBL in Australia,
right?
Where they lost by 10 with their projected starting five all playing.
Did Chris Paul play? I don't think Chris Paul played. Did he?
Honestly, it shouldn't matter. There's no way in hell they should have lost that game.
Yeah, I mean, I know everybody else played, and they played absolutely no defense. I think the 36ers last year averaged something like in the 80s, and they put 133 points up, I believe, against the Suns.
It's a ticking time bomb. The Phoenix Suns are a ticking time bomb. And I think that this year it will probably go off. I think that Jay Crowder is going to be moved soon. And I just don't see how the DeAndre Ayton situation is going to level out and smooth over. I can't see it just going back to how it was before. I see a mid-year trade with DeAndre Ayton happening. And, I mean, I guess this is kind of overlooked. I mean, Chris Paul's age has to come into consideration here. With this team. I mean, last year it was he was picked on in the playoffs. It was almost unplayable at times. He was not aggressive at all. He looked tired. I mean, all these things come into effect. It's only going to be going downhill from here. So now where do you go if you're the Suns? It's a time bomb. I mean, it should have been blown up this offseason and try to surround Devin Booker with more youth. But instead, you still think that this championship window is open when it's not. It's not open anymore. It closed last series against Dallas, and now you need to look and rebuild, trade the Chris Pauls. Ayton wasn't happy, and you decided to match his contract. I get it. Maybe he has some value in the trade market, but now you have to deal with that because he can't be traded until December 15th. Now you have to deal with that for at least, a third of the season. And Cameron Johnson starting over Jay Crowder, you're losing out on defense, on grit, on leadership, for some shooting. But let's just let's just be honest. The Suns, their offensive scheme is to run curl screens off for Devin Booker and shoot a bunch of mid-range shots. Their three-point shot attempts is not even close to their mid-range shot attempts. So unless you're thinking about changing the system, which I don't believe they are, because Devin Booker's still on the team. Ayton likes to shoot mid-range jumpers as well, and we all know that Chris Paul is a savant in the mid-range. That scheme's not going to change because of Cameron Johnson. So unless you're going to get some sort of defensive impact from Johnson, not exactly sure what he's going to bring that's going to change the offense that much. Let's just look at the depth, because there's absolutely no front court depth at all. You have Dario Saric playing the 4 and then Jacques Landale playing the 5. You still have Bismack Biyombo. If you can even consider Bismack Biyombo, you have no front court depth. You hardly have any backcourt depth at all. I know Cameron Payne is solid, I guess. The best you could say is solid for him.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not going to consider him a top tier backup point guard. And right. Landry Shamet was also a disappointment as well. So it's confusing. It is a disaster. It's waiting to happen, and it's going to go off this season. I think that the Suns, they'll probably finish third in the division just off of, if they keep it how it is right now, just with their talent, they probably will still finish over the Lakers, because the Lakers are, not in a better position. But it's still, it's a disaster. The window closed so quickly.
Yeah.
Because you didn't make any additions, and you've now burned bridges with 2 of your key players.
Right. Drew, where do you see Suns finishing?
Yeah, I think that best they'll finish third, and I could see at best they'll finish third. If this gets really bad and they decide to move on from DeAndre Ayton, they might be last in the division. If they get to a point with DeAndre Ayton where it's untenable, he doesn't want to be there, it's becoming a problem, and that happens right around the trade deadline, which will be about a third of the season left to play, there's a reality where this team comes in last in this division. I truly believe that, because they are an injury away from their starting 5 to being in trouble.
Right.
There's just so many red flag factors that could be huge detriments to this team. Ayton might want out. Your offense is predicated on mid-range. Devin Booker is probably one of the most overrated players in the league right now. I think that's just what it is. Chris Paul's age, lack of depth. If everything goes perfectly, you're probably the 3rd seed in your division. And that's if everyone's healthy, it all gets moved over, everyone's happy, you're probably 3rd. You lose a key player, Chris Paul's age really does start to hit, or Ayton wants out. You're just you don't have the depth to come back from any issues. It has to go perfectly. And I just have a really hard time believing that a team led by Devin Booker, because he's their de facto best player, can win.
Right.
That's the crux.
I agree. You put it perfectly. If everything goes well, they're still finishing. They're not going to finish better than 3rd. Unless, one little caveat here, if Mikal Bridges can become an all-star. Yes, if he can become an all-star, then they still might have a shot. Fantasy-wise, I think you have to look at Cameron Payne, obviously, because I don't think you're going to get Chris Paul. If you have any, you're going to have to manage his minutes, and even if you do, at his age, he could go down at any time. He's had injury problems throughout his career. Cameron Johnson obviously gets an immediate boost, and he's a career, 40+%, 3-point shooter, pretty good passer, can get you some rebounds. Ayton, I think you have to stay away from fantasy wise. Certainly not, he's not a super huge fantasy producer as it is. He's a good rebounder, gets you about 17 points, but he's a terrible shot blocker for his size. And then if he gets moved, if they don't get somebody like a Miles Turner in return, maybe a guy who's actually been getting talked up a lot has been Jock Landale. It's kind of a stretch five, not much of a defender, not a great athlete, but he can shoot it. Didn't get a lot of playing time with the Spurs last year. So he's a guy that I would not draft Jock Landale. I'm just throwing his name out there as a deep sleeper that you might want to think about if depending on what shakes out with DeAndre Ayton. So, and the final team in the Pacific is Drew's boys, the Golden State Warriors, and what the reigning NBA champs, I should add. Their key departures are Gary Payton Jr., or the second, excuse me, Otto Porter Jr., the previously mentioned Toscano Anderson, and how do you say?
Nemanja Bjelica.
Thank you. Nothing earth-shaking there as far as losses. In additions, they added Dante DiVincenzo, JaMychal Green, and their draft picks. Both were injured, but apparently are now healthy. Patrick Baldwin and Ryan Rollins. Drew, what do you expect from your Warriors?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, I think the Warriors, for me, are going to win the division. It will be them and the Clippers, I think, kind of at a pretty solid neck-and-neck race. I'll start off with the positives. I think Steph Curry has now officially established himself, my personal rankings, as a top 10 player of all time. He has crept into that 10 spot for me. He's the greatest shooter. I'm not going to go as far as say he's the best point guard of all time. And I'll even admit, I've been resisting to move in the top 10 for years. And that's hard to do in the Bay Area because Steph is basically the equivalent of God out here. Klay Thompson / Jordan Poole. I think it's going to have to be a slash. I love Klay, absolutely love Klay, but I do think that if early on the season he just isn't able to recapture form, you might have to just accept the fact that Poole's got to be the 2 and Klay's your 6 man. I think Wiggins has shocked everybody in the basketball world, myself included, and has become one of the premier two-way players in the league in terms of just do everything. He plays basketball with a much higher IQ now, thanks in part to being with the Warriors. Draymond, he still gives you that energy, that fire, and at his absolute worst, you need him just because this is a team that doesn't have a lot of aggressive outward emotion, so you kind of need that person that can just absorb the hate and take it all. And then Wiseman and Looney, I think, is a really underrated 1-2 center combination in this league. Neither one jumps off the page as like an Embiid or a Jokic or a Cat, but one gives you that kind of huge upside athlete that could become a dominating force if it all clicks. And the other one is probably, in my opinion, one of the most rock solid, just kind of starters in the league at this point. I think every team in the league would take Kevon Looney on their roster. Is kind of how I view it. Now, my concerns for this team are kind of twofold. Last year, Gary Payton left, Otto Porter left, and Bjelica left. Those are kind of the big three. You're basically replacing them with Moody, Kuminga, and Wiseman. You're keeping it more or less all internal. My fear here is that you're trying to bridge a gap of definitely aging veterans and really unproven young guys to maintain contention. And because the only real big additions you have are JaMychal Green and Dante DiVincenzo, I like both of them, by the way. I think DiVincenzo might have been one of the sneakier, better pickups of the offseason. If Moody, Kuminga, and Wiseman cannot step into a really significant role right off the jump, I could see age, just more wear and tear becoming an issue. Klay's coming off injury. Draymond has been kind of banged up. His style of play is predicated on kind of physical toughness, so you can't expect him to play a full 82 and maintain that intensity now that he's 33 years old. I'm going to have to say that until proven otherwise, they're the champs. I think the roster is loaded with talent. I think at every position they go at least 2 deep minimum. And, in some cases at power forward, depending on Kuminga, they go 3. The questions are just going to be, can the veterans stay healthy after another long run? And can the young guys step up and become real contributors? No more is it going to be, Moody has flashes every 7 or 8 games. And, Kuminga has a couple great dunks. And, Wiseman looks good in Japan. It needs to be Wiseman's averaging 10 and 8 and hitting the 3 ball and protecting the rim like now. Kuminga needs to put together some legitimate – she needs to start showcasing some real all-defensive team chops. and finishing around the rim at an elite clip. Moody needs to start becoming a great perimeter scorer and become a legit threat from three. So the young guys have to step up, and obviously the veterans have to stay healthy. You know, you lose Steph, you lose Clay, you lose Draymond. Those are blows that I just don't know if the young guys can fill in that void if they have to now all of a sudden replace a Hall of Famer. But I'm still going to roll with the Warriors until proven otherwise. Wiggins is a great linchpin to hold this team together and kind of be that middle ground of everything I've said. And you got an all-timer, man. As long as Steph Curry is still, you know, prowling around in the Chase Center, that guy can give you 35 in the blink of an eye. So I got the Warriors looking pretty good and definitely probably a top 3 team out West.
Maverick, I assume this the way it's all worked out that this is also your pick for second place behind the Clippers, right?
Yeah, I would have Golden State finishing 2, right behind the Clippers.
Right.
There's not really much to add. Drew, really put it well. Elite coach.
Well, he lives and breathes Warriors. He better.
Yeah. No one better to ask than Drew about the Warriors. But hey, elite coach and Steve Kerr, especially at making adjustments. Elite core. You're going to have a healthy offseason for Clay coming in. You're still going to have Jordan Poole coming off the bench. And if Clay doesn't pan out, then like Drew was saying, that Poole might get the start at the 2. You still have Wiggins. We're going to just assume that he's going to continue on with his 3-and-D role. The Wiseman role is to me, it's still up in the air. I just don't know. I think he's extremely talented as a basketball player. I just don't know about him yet. Like Drew was saying, you're going to be, just replacing these vets that know how to win with these young guys, and Wiseman especially, who's barely played after being picked second. It's just an if. And I know Golden State has dealt with ifs before and obviously have succeeded, but I don't know about this one. This one's a little strange. They haven't dealt with this many young assets before and relied on them to be their main depth. So, they're still going to be a fantastic team. Their chemistry is off the charts. They've kept the same core for years now. Obviously still a threat. But like I was saying, I still think they'll finish second to the Clippers. The Clippers are just,
yeah. I think the division is going to be, could go down to the last day. That's how I think, both of these teams are excellent. And I think you could definitely make an argument that Golden State has actually gotten better just because of experience, gained by Wiseman, Moody, and Kuminga. I think, Steph, he shot less than 40% from deep last year. I think age is catching up with the big three. And so, fantasy wise, I think you got to start expecting, those guys to drop slightly. And of course, if they get hurt, which they all have in the past, then you could, that's another concern. But, as far as depth goes, Poole's on the upswing. So I don't think you have to worry, especially for Clay. If Clay goes down for a significant time, I think they're fine. DiVincenzo is a great addition. And so if Steph goes down, is DiVincenzo Steph? No, of course not. But I think, he's definitely, he's an upgrade over Gary Payton, especially offensively. And he's a sneaky rebounder. So, he'll grab you 5, 6, 7 boards a game. So fantasy wise, I think he's a guy to look into, a late round pick, to round out your roster on a team with some older players. So I think he's going to get, consistent minutes, in the 25 minutes a game range, or maybe even a little more. As far as the young guys, the guy I like the best as far as fantasy production, and the guy I think is going to be the biggest contributor this year is Wiseman. I think you can count on him giving you 12 and 8 and a few blocks a game. Kuminga is the guy I would stay away from I just don't trust him at all. And Moody, I'm somewhere in between the two. But yeah, I think this team still has plenty of championship potential. Health is, with the older guys, it's going to come the same with Clippers. It's all depends who's going to be healthy.
For the sake of you guys, man, I hope they don't win again, because at this point, I'm just going to get the Warriors logo tattooed on my face. If they somehow pull this one out again, oh my God, I'm already pretty insufferable.
What's
just imagine.
I'm sorry. What's beautiful about the organization is the fact that they do have championship potential, just won the championship, and they have guys like Poole, Moody, DiVincenzo, Wiseman, and Kuminga, and they're 2 rookies that they added this year. I mean, this team is not really, beside the big 3, is not that old, so yeah, there's plenty of hope for the future, unlike some of the other teams we talked about, like the Clippers and the Bucks, that they don't really have a lot in the pipeline. So, yeah. All right, we're very excited to bring on today's special guest, Kentucky sophomore forward Daimion Collins. Last season as a freshman, Daimion led the Wildcats with a true shooting percentage of 62.9 and a block percentage of 10.7. He also ranked second on the team with a free throw percentage of 85.7, defensive rating of 86.4, and a player efficiency rating of 22, and got more stats. He ranked third on the team with a field goal percentage of 57.7 and a rebounding percentage of 15.9. So, Daimion, thanks so much for joining us today. How you doing?
Good. How about you?
Good. The weather's kind of crappy where the storm's moving up the coast, and we're near New York. Or I'm near New York. Drew's in San Francisco, but
it's beautiful in the Bay Area today, man. I can't complain. It's beautiful out here.
But yeah, other than the dismal weather, I'm doing great. Yeah, so going to start off with a question talking about your choice of high schools and college. You started off at Atlanta High School in Texas. Mm-hmm. You averaged 35 points per game, 14 rebounds, 7 assists, and 6 blocks per game. You were the Texas Gatorade Player of the Year and McDonald's All-American, of course. Why did you decide to play at your local high school instead of one of the traditional powerhouses? And the second part of the question is, what made you choose Kentucky over a local school such as like University of Texas or Kansas?
I mean, I guess just for me, like staying at my high school is because, that's home. That's where I was born and raised. And, that's where like everyone I loved was. So like that's what meant the most to me. So that's why I stayed there. And then as far as me choosing Kentucky, Kentucky one of the best schools, basketball school there is. Then Coach Cal, Hall of Fame coach. Then like I wanted to go somewhere that was gonna push me to be the best me.
Right. I noticed a lot of the schools that had offered you scholarships, they were in the midst of coaching changes, except for Kansas. Everybody else, Texas Tech, Texas, Oklahoma, they were all changing coaches, I believe. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, makes sense. I'm going to pass you over to Drew for the second question.
Right on, Daimion. Thanks for spending time with us today, man. I know you guys are ramping up with basketball just right around the corner. Rich kind of already talked about this, but, you were highly efficient as a freshman, but you guys had a really deep and loaded front court. So I think you were only averaging, a little over 7 minutes a game in the off season, though. I know Coach Cal predicted that you'd become one of the best players in the nation. Is the plan for you to be taking on a full starting role this season? And, what do you think about Coach Cal's prediction, man? Those are some pretty awesome words to hear from a Hall of Famer.
I mean, yeah, I think that is something good to hear, but I think it's just all on me, staying in the gym, working hard, giving it my all every game. So I think if I do those things, I would probably be one of the best.
Right on, man.
I know you guys, you just got back from the Bahamas not too long ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't able to see any of those games, but so I haven't seen you play in over 6 months. I already know you're an excellent athlete, excellent in transition, running the floor, cutter, rebounder, shot blocker. But since last March, has your body changed? And has there been any specific aspects of your game that you focused on improving since last year?
I mean, I think my body has changed a little. You know, I have gained some weight. And, you know, as far as my game, I think I have gotten better. You know, just my versatility on the court. You know, just getting out, shooting the jumpers, dribbling, stuff like that. I think that's the part of my game I have been improving on.
Okay. All right. I'm going to pass you back to Drew.
So going off that, then obviously, you know, basketball is becoming more about spacing the court, everyone being able to shoot. So it's awesome to hear that you're adding kind of that mid-range jumper to your arsenal. You know, one of the things that was really interesting when Rich and I were talking was how, you know, you averaged 7 assists a game in high school. Is there maybe a chance for you to take on some more, I guess, you know, post-passing work, maybe initiating some offense from like the elbows down on the block? Because you clearly have a pretty solid knack for passing the ball going back to when you were younger.
Yeah, I think that will be a part of my game. You know, I think I try to, you know, show all aspects of my game, you know, just as it passing the ball, scoring, defense, blocking shots, rebounding, stuff like that. I think that will be something that'll be a part of my game.
Do you think there's going to be an adjustment period? I mean, I noticed when I was, you know, reviewing some of your games, it seemed you and Oscar weren't on the court a lot same time. Is that going to be an adjustment for you this year? Because don't you think you'll be on the floor a lot at the same time as him this year?
I mean, I think it would be, you know, pretty much the same because that's something we do a lot in practice. We play with a lot of different lineups throughout the team. So I think that's something that would be just, you know, something that I'm used to doing just because we work on it a lot in practice.
Okay. All right. So now I'm going to move on to the team, and you'll have to bear with me because I'm going to talk about how, for the listeners, how the team has changed. But so you lost Ty Washington, Kellen Grady, and Davion Mintz to the pros. Keon Brooks and Dante Allen transferred. By the way, I met Keon at the G League Elite Camp. Talked to him for a while. And he's gone on to Washington. And the newcomers include Wing, both 5-star guys like you, Wing Chris Livingston and Cason Wallace, combo guard. And you've added Illinois State transfer Antonio Reeves, who's a real high-scoring player from Illinois State. And, of course, the core is yourself, Oscar, Severe Wheeler, Jacob Toppin, Lance Ware, and CJ Frederick, who was with you last year but didn't play because he was hurt. For those of you who don't remember, he was a sharpshooter for Iowa, played with Joe Wieskamp, who's now with the Spurs. So, per usual, you guys are, you know, considered to be a top 10 team. In your estimation, after the Bahamas, you know, how do you think the team's shaping up? What do you think your strengths are going to be as a team, and how far can this team go?
I think we can go pretty far because, you know, just by seeing the Bahamas, how well we play defense, shared the ball with each other, you know, just did what we had to do. I think just seeing that gave me great confidence about our team throughout this season.
Okay. And how's everybody? Is CJ 100% healthy and everybody else healthy?
I mean, yeah, everybody's pretty good to go. We all been working hard, you know, just getting ready for the season. So I think pretty much everybody's ready to go.
All right. And the freshmen, they're fitting in nicely?
Yes, sir. You know, they came in working hard, you know, staying in the gym every day, working on their body and stuff like that. So, yeah, they will be ready to go by the time the season starts.
Okay. Alrighty.
So, Daimion, I mean, obviously the SEC's got a lot of good teams in it. I mean, there's Arkansas, Florida, Auburn, Tennessee, all look pretty good. They're all returning back some key pieces. Who do you guys think is going to be like the biggest, you know, challenge for you guys to overcome this year in the conference?
I don't think I can just name just one team because, you know, we don't underestimate no team. Every team every team we play is a good team. Every game going to be a dogfight. So we just go into every game with the same mentality, just to play hard and play for the W. So that's what we do every game.
Yeah, man, for sure. I mean, is there an individual player that you're really excited to match up against? Like I said, there's a lot of really good players. Like, is there somebody that you're really excited to get a chance to play and, kind of test yourself against?
Like I said on the other one, it's just like I can't just name one person because it's a lot of, good players in the SEC that I'm just looking to match up against.
Sure, man.
Daimion, who's your favorite NBA team?
I don't really have a favorite team. I have a favorite player though.
Who's that?
Kevin Durant.
All righty.
Okay, for sure.
And do you guys are about same size, similar build? So do you style your game after him, or are there a couple of players that you watch that you're like, he's like me and I think I could beat him?
Yeah, I think I kind of do match my game up to his a little bit just because we have the same body type. He can play the perimeter, shoot the ball, handle the ball, stuff like that. And I feel like I can do the same, so I do kind of model my game after him.
Alrighty.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute there for a second. So, you guys had some Kentucky guys that moved on to the NBA this year. Obviously, you mentioned like Ty. Who do you think is going to have a really good rookie season, man? Like, do you think any of the guys are really going to pop?
I'm just wishing that all the ones that went to the league have a good season this year, just to be the first year in the league, on a big stage, living their dream. So I just hope all of them does well.
Are you in touch with are you in touch with everybody like Shaden and Ty and Kellen?
We all pretty much still talk to each other. Just from last year we built a great bond with each other. We just all brothers, so we do keep in contact with each other a lot.
All righty, cool. All right, so last question. What is Daimion Collins like off the court? What are some of your interests? What are some of your hobbies that don't involve basketball or schoolwork?
Outside of school, I don't do too much, just hang with some friends, play 2K or something like that. When I don't do too much when I'm off the court.
What team do you play when you play 2K?
With the Nets.
With the Knicks?
The Nets.
The Nets.
Oh, the Nets, right. Because
KD is nasty in 2K.
Right.
Which I know you probably don't play, but KD in 2K is nasty.
Dude,
he's tough.
I used to play 2K all the time. I just haven't played it. I haven't really played it since I started Hoops Prospects. But yeah, I used to play it all the time. All right, Daimion. So I really want to thank you for joining us today. I wish you in the Wild. We both, Drew and I, wish you and the Wildcats
Absolutely.
the best this coming season. And hopefully, maybe after the season, you can come back and visit us and let us know. We could talk about what's next. What's next for you?
Yes, sir. Got you.
All right, buddy. All right. Have a good season. Man. We'll be watching.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Daimion. All right, so it's time for our mailbag. So what do we have this week? Steve, first question, interesting question, funny question, actually. Steve asked, what did you guys think when you heard Kevin Durant say to the press this week, can we move past that at some point? And is that the quote of the year so far? And what he's referring to is Durant was remember we talked about issues continually being asked by the media. They were asking him about the offseason, his trade demands, and his fire the coach, all these demands. And so his question was, can we move past that at some point? So, and Steve wants to know, is that the quote of the year so far? Drew, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, definitely quote of the year so far. And if you're talking about quote of just the most, out of box, like, how are you that just like naive, just like I just don't really know. Like, how are you that you don't think demanding a trade, demanding your entire front office basically be gutted. All of that, like just coming out and basically laying waste to your entire franchise verbally. And everyone's supposed to just be like, yeah, it's cool. It didn't happen. Like, it's fine. Like, dude, come on. Like, Kevin, you're clearly a smart guy. He's clearly a very intelligent guy. He's great in the business sector. He's a savant at the game of basketball. But come on, man. If I worked for, Google and was all like, or whatever company said, yeah, get rid of the CEO. I should be president. And buy out all the owners. It's my show. Everyone's like, what the hell is wrong with you, dude? Like, do you remember the time you said that Google should just completely restructure around you and meet all your demands? I mean, it's just a bad look. Look, all the Nets will, if he comes out at 30 points a game, contends MVP, stays healthy, and carries them to the Eastern Conference Finals, all is going to be forgiven. But until that happens, or if it happens, no, dude, everyone's gonna be talking about this forever. God forbid this team comes out and struggles. If they come out and struggle, especially if everyone is playing and healthy, man, it's only gonna get worse. It's only gonna get worse.
Yeah, it takes some big balls to say at media day, can we move past this at some point? It's the first time you're talking to the media since all this crap went down, and that's your response. I mean, I could see it if he was saying this in March. Yeah. Okay, but yeah. Maverick, you have anything to add?
Well, Steve, if you think that was the quote of the year, I promise you it's only going to get better, because those questions are not going to stop. I promise you, throughout the entire year this year, they're not going to stop, and the responses are only going to get better.
How about if we Steve, I think you had me come up with an idea here. How about if we keep track of quote of the year? And right now, Kevin Durant is in the lead. He's got the early lead with can we move past this?
Not if Kyrie has anything to say about it.
All right, so we're going to keep track of this, Steve. Good question. Funny question. All right, so Kenny says Orlando Robinson and Jovic are the newcomers that I am most excited about for the Heat. What do you guys think? I'm not so excited about those guys. I don't know about you two.
No, I think the problem with it is that, they're fine players in their own right. We're not trashing their ability to play the game of basketball, but you're on a team that is still gripping. I mean, they just signed Hero to that big extension. They are, still trying to contend. They're still pushing for contention. They are not going to be big pieces to this puzzle. I mean, Orlando is going to be playing behind, at best, he's going to be playing behind Bam. There's probably other guys that could come that are going to be, I don't have their depth chart in front of me, that are going to be ahead of him.
Yurtseven and Dwayne Dedmon.
So you're going to be
so Robinson's he's not even a lock to make the team right now.
Exactly.
He's on an exhibit 10. So
and Jovic's kind of the same thing.
Jovic is going to make the team because he's a high draft pick.
He'll make the team, but like in terms of impact, I wouldn't be surprised if he's bouncing between the G League and the team.
Most definitely.
So if you're looking at long term and you're like, I'm really excited to have Jovic on the roster, and 2-3 years he could really pop. Absolutely. This year, no way. They are all in on remaining relevant. And Pat Riley and Jimmy Butler are not handing the reins over, or at least substantial time in minutes to rookies. Not happening.
I mean, it would be nice, but we commented back when we gave out the draft grades that Jovic was a weird pick for the Heat because they did need help at power forward, but they picked one of the youngest guys in the draft, and he's clearly not ready. So long term, I could see where you'd be excited about him, but this year, no, sir. All right. So Antonio wants to know, between Keegan Murray, this is tough.
That's a good question.
Between Keegan Murray, Jaden Ivey, and Jabari Smith, who do you think will have the better fantasy season? I'm going to give Mav, you take the first crack at this. Keegan Murray, Jaden Ivey, and Jabari Smith.
I think it's going to be Jabari Smith. think Jabari Smith's efficiency is going to translate to the NBA, and I also think he's just a fantastic defender. I remember watching him in the summer league, and I was incredibly impressed by how he was on the perimeter. I think he's probably going to get a steal and a block a game, and I still think his efficiency is going to be great. He probably will drop a little bit from in college because his efficiency in college was just insane. But I think that Jabari Smith, out of those three guys, will probably have the best fantasy season.
What do you think, Drew?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Matt here. I think it is Jabari or Keegan. I mean, I like Ivy a lot. We've talked very highly about him on the show. I just think his role is going to be more of that of like a slasher, just an athletic finisher at the rim. He's not gonna have the ball in his hands enough. And I think you have to give the nod to Jabari out of these three because Keegan is at best currently the third wheel offensively. And that's what he's an offensive player. Like his game is predicated on putting the ball in the bucket. And that's at best. So Jabari is going to be on a rebuilding team. The only guy on that pecking order that's probably clearly ahead of him is Jalen Green. And that's really only because Jalen's got a year of NBA experience over him. It wouldn't surprise me in next season, Jabari is the go-to guy on this roster. So I think I'm just going to go Jabari Smith. I do worry about the efficiency being inconsistent. I think by the end of the year, we'll look at it and be like, he was fine, but there's going to be games, as with most rookies, especially he's going to have games where he's going to be 2 for 12 from the field. But, Matt said this, he's a good defender. So blocks, steals are definitely going to be things that translate to the box score. He's probably going to be a solid rebounder. Just again, there's not going to be a lot of competition for boards out there. Like he's kind of the guy. So he's going to be pulling down rebounds. And he's going to also have games where he might go, 4 for 6 from 3 and 8 for 10 from the field and, gives you 24 points, 6 rebounds, a couple assists, 2 blocks, and a steal. So it's probably going to be Jabari. But as with most rookies, be prepared to ride that wave. It's going to be up and down at times.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. My order would be the opposite way they were listed. I would say Smith's going to be the best. Ivy's going to be second. Murray's going to be third. I think, and basically I like Smith because he probably will be the third scoring option on that team. He'll be part of the big three. I'm throwing Kevin Porter in there. Ivy's got a bunch of people to compete with, and we just got done talking about Keegan Murray. The other thing about Ivy is I think Ivy will probably be the most inefficient of the three. Last question. This is an easy one. Well, no, it's not. There's 2 parts to it. Okay, so Julie asked, are you going to have a preview show for college basketball? I can clearly say yes, and we will start in the middle of October. We're going to have 3 weeks. We're going to be previewing different conferences each week, and then we'll have like a prediction show where we pick our national champs, Final Four, Player of the Year, stuff like that. So, yeah, that's coming up soon. And who is your preseason pick for number 1? Well, I will throw my 2 cents in here and let you guys talk after because I've been saying it probably since the season ended last year. I like North Carolina. And adding Pete Nance to replace Brady Manick, and they bring everybody back. Yeah, I mean, how can you not like North Carolina? Anybody else have a different choice?
No, it's got to be Carolina. I mean, you add Pete Nance, who, Rich knows I'm a fan of. I've done a lot of work around Pete Nance over the past couple months, so I've gotten more and more familiar with his game. I think he does everything Brady does, and I think he's better than Brady overall, just as like a passer. He can still hit the 3 ball at a good clip. So I think you return Leaky Black, you retain RJ Davis. Obviously, Baycott's back, and he's an absolute force. I'm missing one more guard.
Love.
You return Caleb Love. I mean, this team obviously had its struggles, but got hot at the right time. And if they carry that momentum into this year, they added Pete Nance on top of they've got 2 4-stars, 2 top 50 freshmen for sure. I know it's Seth Trimble and the kid's last name is Washington. I think it might be like Jalen Washington or something. Yeah, Jalen Washington. You got 2 guys that are 4-star recruits, very close to that 5-star ranking. I mean, they're kind of right there.
Right.
If just one of those guys, probably just one of them pops and like comes in and makes an impact right away, this team's going to go 6-7 deep easily. And not to mention they've got some other guys who might take up a role now that, people have left. So, I would say my number 2 team, I know they always get ranked high, but I'm probably going to have to go with the Zags. You get Malachi Smith from Chattanooga. Timmy's back in the fold. I think highly of Hunter Salas and Nolan Hickman, the two freshman guards from last year. I think very highly of Strother. Bolton's back. So they're super loaded. Not to mention they got the transfer from LSU to give them some like legitimate athletic size. I'm drawing a blank on the kid's name, but they've got a really good squad. So those are going to be my kind of 1-2. But, man, North Carolina looks tough.
All right. So great questions this week, folks. I appreciate it as always. We appreciate it as always. Keep sending those questions in. And if you want to do that, please send them to admin@hoopsprospects.com. That's ADMIN@hoopsprospects.com. I want to thank our special guest, Daimion Collins, and all of our listeners, of course. We'll be back next week to wrap up our division previews with the Northwest and Southwest divisions. And then the following week, we'll do our fearless forecast. We'll be picking our NBA champions, rookie of the year, and all that good stuff. So until next week, come back next week for those division previews, but we'll see you soon.